they just sit around and soak up each other's awesomeness.
Awesome. Awesome.
That was awesome.
You guys are awesome.
No, you're awesome.
You are awesome.
Sir, you are awesome. Seriously.
Awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
Everything is awesome.
Welcome to this week's edition of Everything is Awesome. I am your host, Kev, and this is a show where we sit down and talk to awesome people about awesome things. This week's guest is one of those great guests that they come to me, and so it means I have to do very little work to actually get the show started, except for, the scheduling is the hardest part when it comes to these ones, which is I'm okay with. This week's guest is a musician, a songwriter, an activist. He has, his music that he has to promote. He has a news channel that he does through probably YouTube, if I had to guess. But he has a news channel through social media and new media and stuff. Please welcome to the show. This one's easy, guys, because he did not. I'm sure, actually, if I did what he expected me to do and a little bit of research, I'd have a last name. But because I do very little research, welcome to the show, Dru.
What's going on, man?
Thanks for being on the show, man.
It's all good, man.
Something that my audience knows, and normally I warn my guests ahead of time, and we got talking about something else before we started the show off proper, but I'm a big believer. I probably false advertise this show as an interview show because I believe it's more of a conversation show.
Gotcha.
So I don't really do much research, which benefits me in two ways. I think we come out with a better product at the end. It's a more natural conversation, something that probably would happen in a bar or something if we were sharing a couple drinks and we just got to talking. I think that's more natural than an interview, and also I don't have to do any work really, so it benefits me in two ways.
Definitely where it works for me.
So now I know and because you're on the East Coast, I like to kind of drill down a little bit more because I'm familiar with the East Coast. We're on the same time zone. I'm sure we're both a little sleepy. Whereabouts the East Coast are you from?
From New York City.
Oh,
yeah. Pretty much here for the long haul, man.
Born and raised?
Yep, I was born in Staten Island and been around a bit. Hung around the West Coast for a little bit. But for now, for the foreseeable future, I'm pretty much New York bound.
Well, okay, that's it. We'll start there before we get to anything else. Because I've only ever lived in like the Philly area. I always say Philadelphia.
Cool.
I've never actually lived in the city. I lived in the suburbs, but it's easier to say Philly. So I've only ever lived in this area. I've visited, I've used to travel for work. So I've been up and down the entire East Coast. I've been a little out West, as far as, I think Los Angeles and Mountain View, California and stuff like that.
Right.
But I've never lived out there. So as someone that's lived on both coasts, what's it like? What's the, what do you prefer?
I don't know if it's a preference or just being more used to New York. It's definitely a different vibe out West. It's a little slower. The people are different. And I guess I'm just used to New York. New York is fast paced. There's always things going on, and I'm a pretty random person. So New York kind of caters to my random personality.
Nice. Yeah. And for me, like being, I kind of think that's also an East Coast mentality too, because I know a couple people who now live out West. And I mean, they obviously enjoy it because they're still there. They're there either for work or they're there for acting or the entertainment industry, whatever reasons. But they all kind of have that same mentality of where like they still consider themselves East Coast people because it's just that mentality that you mentioned.
Right.
When you were out West, what you were doing out there, was it for work, school, combination of both?
A combination of work and just just chilling. A lot of the work that I do is home based. So, a lot of all the work I've done, I could do it here. I could do it on any coast.
Mhm.
So, sometimes I've taken off to a different coast just to, chill for a while. And yeah, I just kind of think I'm a New York type person for now. I see a move coming in the future, but for now, New York's where it's at for me.
Well, and that's, being someone that's a creative type, and that's like how you make your money. If like you're like a lucky person where you can be, a musician, a songwriter, or whatever kind of creative thing that you do in the entertainment industry. It doesn't even have to be in the entertainment industry, to be honest. But if you can do something that typically that could be like home based, it's a very beneficial because you can make anywhere your home and still
Pretty
make a
much.
living.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
so your New York is where you're from. It's where you originate from. Where does music? Let's start there. Where does music kind of fall in for you there? How does New
Wow.
York influence you?
Wow. Well, music. New York influences the world actually, and it influences New Yorkers because I think we're kind of exposed to a lot of different kinds of music, and I would say that that's probably the biggest benefit from living in New York. When you go to different coasts and you go to the South, there's kind of a South feel to the music, or you go to lots of different places. It kind of has a style to the music. In New York, we're exposed to so many different types of music. So, there's a nice eclectic blend to a lot of the styles that, I've done through the years because I'm just exposed to a lot. And I'm definitely thankful for that, and it's totally a New York thing to even just eating out. You can go to a Moroccan place on Wednesday and Sri Lankan place on Thursday, and it's just a smorgasbord of different styles and people and ethnicities. And I think musically it's the same way.
Yeah, and it's kind of neat talking to someone that's from New York because I was just there at the time of this recording. I was there literally about 3 or 4 days ago on Friday for I didn't go to New York Comic Con, but I was there during New York Comic Con, and I was there to do a live show of this very show, and got to walk around the city for quite a bit.
Yeah.
And it is just that how you describe it. It's like it's such a different experience than Philly, even. And again, we explained I'm not technically a Philly boy, but I can go down to the city and hang out and have a good time.
Right.
And as I think as busy as Philly is, it's got I don't think anything really anywhere really has anything on New York. There might be a few cities that have some of that busyness quality. Not that that's a bad thing. I'm not using that as a negative term, but
Right.
that activity, the activityness of it all, I guess is what I'm trying to say. There is something to do. Walking when I was walking down, I believe it was 44th.
To live right
Towards.
there.
Oh, okay. So I was in your neck of the woods because we went. So you may be familiar with the Producers Club, which
Mm,
it's a small. Okay, yeah. So it's a small venue on like 44th and 9th.
wow. I
Uh,
used to live at 40th and 8th.
okay, so you were only a couple blocks away from it. It's this cool so it's the one thing that I loved about walking to that theater to like kind of prep for my show was just like looking at all the other theaters I was passing on my walk. And I came from Penn Station, so I took that down to 44th and then went down to 9th. But like seeing all, and I'm not a theater person at all.
Right.
And I think we're living in a time where theater is really kind of hitting a wider audience.
Mm.
And like just and I say this because like I'm walking down and I see like preview nights for, and I forget the name of the play, but it has John Goodman in it. And like to be like I'm a kid of the 90s. Like I was born in 84, but I'm a 90s kid.
Yeah.
And like John Goodman to me, like that's Roseanne, the show
Right.
Roseanne. And like
I didn't even know he's on Broadway right now. You saying?
no, yeah, I had no idea. It's just that I happened to pass it. It's a name I passed, and like it was just wonderful walking down that one, maybe 2 or 3 blocks, and just seeing all the different shows happening. And it wasn't even like on Broadway. It was the off Broadway stuff.
Oh,
Uh,
that John Goodman's in?
yeah, yeah. Well, he might be. It might the regular night might be regular show might be on Broadway, but like the preview night was off Broadway.
Gotcha.
But it was just in general, not just his show, just seeing all the different shows and like I don't know, and maybe it's because I'm in my 30s now and I have more respect for art, but I don't know, just seeing all that art and culture and whatnot in the few blocks that I walked of New York on Friday. It was something that you don't get to see in Philadelphia. And it's really neat. I don't know if I could handle New York City on a daily basis and live
It's a
there.
lot. It's definitely a lot. And like, some people are either New York or they're just not.
It's definitely a place that I would say that I could visit, and I'm glad. Here's why I love Philly, and it's a silly reason, but Philly to me is within 2 hours, give or take, with traffic, of anywhere that I would really want to go. That's of like really cool interest. The Shore,
Yeah.
DC, and New York City. It's I can get to New York on a train. I got there in an hour and a half.
Wow.
So like it's I can experience New York without having a lot of intimidation.
Well, I have a brother. I'm pretty familiar with Philly. My brother lives in Yeadon,
Okay.
and that's pretty much right next to Philly.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not. That must be on the other side of Philly because that doesn't sound familiar. In my neck of the woods, I'm like. So when I say I'm from Philly, it's probably more accurate to say I'm from Trenton because I can spit on Trenton from where I
Okay.
live.
Oh.
Yeah, so I live on like the Jersey Pennsy coast or
Gotcha.
border rather. But so what kind of what music? What drove you to music as a kid, or when did you get into it? Maybe it wasn't even as a kid.
Yeah, no, I was a kid. I did music, single digits. I was doing it in my church first.
Okay.
Where I was just making some songs. I was a little shy, and I started to do songs for the church. And the pastor's wife kind of discovered the fact that I liked music, and she let me do it every third Sunday. So every third Sunday, I performed music, wrote songs, and that was pretty much the start of me doing music on a regular basis. I used to write songs to perform them in church, and just write songs just to write songs. And then from there, I just kept at it. It was just kind of what I did. Didn't really rate myself or do it for an applause or anything. It just kind of always did it, just naturally, second nature. And did more things as I got older, got involved in certain productions. I did a musical book tape and other things, and just kind of kept at it, kept performing right into adulthood.
Now, when did that's what you wanted to do, like for a living, or
Yeah, you see, that's the tricky thing. I mean, it's it's like I didn't really equate it to doing anything for a living. It's just what I did.
Okay.
It's one of those things that there was a time where I kind of tried to think that way and just kind of tried to make it some kind of career, but it was never really that. For me, it's just what I did, what I wanted to do. It's what I loved. And then I got to a point where I tried to make it make sense, literally make money.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been doing that and working as doing jingles and writing songs for commercials. And then I eventually did some records with house music labels, and then from there, I'm actually just getting back to, doing it for the love and doing it, it's nice to generate income, and I've found ways to generate income making music, working with marketing companies, and that's been awesome. And releasing music with house labels, and that's also been awesome. But I just think it's something I'm always gonna be doing, and it's great, to make money, to do music as well. But that was never the primary goal. But it's great to do both.
That's that's something that I think can resonate with a lot of people of whatever they're passionate about. Like, for instance, the story you just kind of told there reminds me of the 9 years I've been doing podcasting, and
Wow.
there was a time that I started to be about passion of I guess entertaining at first,
Yeah.
because I didn't discover that it was about the conversation until I started this show. But at some point it turned into like, okay, well, let's find a way to get sponsors
Right.
and make money and like do live shows and sell tickets. And like, it turned into like, how can I make money off of this? Cause this is what I want to do to make money. And, I would say that I've had, probably if I've been podcasting for 9 years, I've easily had at least 9 shows that I've been a part of,
Yeah.
if not more. And, to varying degrees of success. And, this one, while it's not like it's popular enough to where I keep doing it, obviously, but it's not, I've had more popular shows, especially when I did live streaming and stuff.
Right.
You pull in a whole new audience that way. But when I shifted gears to not think about like, let's make money from this show, and I shifted gears to like, what kind of show do I want to do? What do I enjoy doing? And that's just kind of having interesting conversations with people.
Right.
And I, same thing now that I don't imagine a world where I don't do a podcast, no matter
That's
how many people are listening to it, no matter if I'm making money or not. I feel like as long as I have guys like you, or anyone that's just got a conversation or wants to sit down and talk, I'm going to keep doing it because it's that passion. It's that love of, for me,
right.
talking.
I think that's the best, man. I think that's, like I said, it's cool to make money, but it's cool to, like what you do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have a new love for podcasting since I've come to it from that approach of like, I'm about just doing it for fun / like, that's almost incorrect too, because it's almost like I'm not doing it necessarily for fun. I'm doing it because it's like it's in me. I have to.
Right.
Yeah. So I relate to you on that level. Is it's a passionate thing, and I think that's it's great if anyone can find that passion that they have and find a way to make money out of it. But I think it's that shouldn't be your primary goal, because I think you lose sight of what you're trying to do if you make
Right.
that your primary goal.
Totally.
So now now I know you have, I kind of wonder, well, let's talk about songwriting just briefly. You kind of talked about it as well. And it sounds like, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like maybe your love of music also is when you started writing your own songs. Like, it sounds like they
Right.
kind of were hand in hand with one another.
Yeah. It's weird. It's like, it's just something that I did, and it's, I can remember the first song and songs that I wrote. Don't know why I did it. And I think I would say that that's my biggest strength as a
Okay.
musician is the songwriting and making songs. It's like there's a song in my head, and it doesn't matter if I sing it, doesn't matter if you sing it. It's just like I hear that song, and I just always liked to write songs, and I performed them before I even knew what I was doing. It's like, and I just I don't know what you call that, passion, or it is what it is.
Yeah, I think that's great. I equate to that as well. Like, from, I found out in my probably mid to late 20s, so not that long ago, that like I have this kind of other passion, and I think it kind of goes hand in hand with doing this show, because it's a conversation, but that's also storytelling. But I have this passion that I want to like sit down and write, a script and film a movie. And I've written before, but I don't think I would ever call myself a writer,
Okay.
or filmmaker or anything, because I've directed little small projects, and I've written for small projects, but I think for me it's storytelling. Like I just
Yeah.
have like that's a nice general term I like, and like sometimes I'll jot notes down and someone else takes it and they roll with it for the to create their own story and whatnot.
If somebody takes it.
Well, no. Like I hand it to, like they'll say, "Hey, I have this idea for this," and I'll say, "Well, here's what I would do," and I just like 5 bullet points of
Gotcha.
like, here's a strong story from these 5 bullet points, like for short stories and whatnot. So,
Gotcha.
and yeah, no, it's just it's funny because a lot of like there's I've talked to probably mainly podcasters on this show, but I also talk to musicians because for me, again, it's about the conversation, not necessarily the subject. And honestly, like I'm not like a big music person. Like I grew up as on like comedy, but even more so like radio, like talk radio is what I
Gotcha.
grew up on. So I mean, it helps explain my love of talking and podcasting. And but I do love, like I have a buddy who hosts a podcast that's a lot like this, except it's very Philly music oriented. So like,
Gotcha.
all his guests tend to be Philly based. All his guests tend to be, music based. But I love sitting down and listening to it because I just love absorbing new information. And same thing when I talk to someone that's out of my realm of like comfort, which is podcast. I don't even want to say that because it's not necessarily that, but like when I know podcasting, so it's like talking shop. But when I get to talk to a musician or a writer or anything like that, like it's kind of more so out of my realm of comfort. So like it's just I love soaking in that new information, and learning the process. And it's always like I always like seeing how it equates, and normally 9 times out of 10, like I'll talk to like a guy like you, and it sounds like we basically have a kind of a similar story in our passions. It's just that our passions are different.
Right. Man, it's very similar. A lot of the arts are very similar, and and what I found, like-minded is, just doing it because you want to do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what that mindset. Obviously we've talked about it for a few minutes here, and it's come up before on this show. And that's I would say if there's a theme to everything is awesome, it's usually storytelling and be passionate about what you're doing. Like they're like the 2 things that come up all the time. And I feel like the people that come on the show and talk about something that they're actually passionate about versus something they're trying to do to make a buck,
Right.
it's the conversation's very different. I enjoy it more. I enjoy participating in it more. And it's also, it's much more honest, I think.
Yeah.
And before we let you go, cause it is getting, as a couple of East Coast boys, I know it's getting a little late.
Yeah.
But you did. I know you made sure that to make a note that like, hey, I have this news thing that I really want to talk about, and I'll be honest. When we had when I had someone take a look at it while I was working on something else, just to kind of give me like the synopsis, like they forgot to see that you were an actual musician too, and they were like.
Knew.
No, like so I have a guy that helps me look at my the page that you contacted me on.
Right.
And like usually he knows that like when we get into the newsy stuff, and we get a little everything is awesome doesn't touch on serious topics all the time.
Right.
So he's like, I don't think you're gonna want to do this because there's like it's a news station and whatnot. I was like, did you read it? Because when I glanced at it, I saw something about he's a musician. And so I want to get into your news channel, and I don't know if it's like a serious news channel or is it like satire or and what brought you to start doing that from the world of music?
Well, it's all of the above, and like I do a lot of different things. I'm a writer as well.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was doing music, there was different ways I was making money, and one of the ways I used to make money was as a freelance writer for different, you know, magazines and in periodicals, and one of my outlets was doing blogs, and from blogs went to vlogs, and I started a news channel, and became another one of my outlets. It's compensated, yeah, but at first it wasn't. And it was just, one of the things I wanted to do because I liked to do it. I like to write. And, the passion to write has morphed into making blogs and vlogs. And it's an outlet for talking about things that, a lot of people don't usually like to talk about or don't usually think about. Because, I don't know where you want to take the direction of conversation. But from where I view things as a writer, a lot of people, sit in front of the TV and don't actually think about issues, don't research things, don't, fact check, and don't really know what's going on. If you sit and trust the television, you're living in an alternate reality. And, I come from a group of people who we keep each other on our toes and we actually do real journalism, and you'll be so surprised what you know and what you don't know. If you just, sit and trust the mainstream news, mainstream media, and don't actually do any research, you trust, especially this day and age, and you trust the news that you hear on the TV, there's 9 times out of 10 you haven't a clue what is going on in the world. And it's exciting to have an outlet where I'm discussing things with people that do, and people all over the world, comparing notes, comparing files, comparing documents and evidence, and just really having an international conversation about real facts, real evidence. And, it's kind of cool. And so with that channel, that's kind of what I do. And it has a little bit of, these type of things, they develop little cult audiences and cult followings of people who actually appreciate, real journalism, or even if you don't agree, just the perspective, that challenges the status quo.
That's I like the sound of it, and I'll tell you what, because I'm not a newsy person. Like as I said, I probably, and it makes me be a terrible adult. Like I'm a grown adult with children. I should probably be more on top of current events and stuff. But honestly, I'm such a kid that to me, I'd rather read about what's going on with Luke Cage and Daredevil than what's going on in the real world. That's not I'm not a really good adult at all. But I think part of it is that I'd rather, the reason I turn to pop culture, comic book nerdiness type stuff, or just whatever entertains me.
I'm a comic nerd, by the way.
Okay, well, we may have just expanded our conversation beyond a half hour, sir. But so before we get to that, I think I turned to that because it's just I'd rather be entertained to see what mainstream news has to offer, simply because, and I just, interestingly enough, I had a conversation with someone the other day talking about they live in UK, and talking about world peace and how the news they all you hear on the news is negative because that's kind of what sells,
right?
And whatnot, and really when you're for me, and again, this is coming from someone who does not watch news often at all, but if I'm sitting around watching Fox News or even NBC News or something I don't, I'm just using that because I know Fox News is the worst example,
right,
of a news outlet, but even NBC or ABC, the local news stations like that. It's just for the most part, unless they're talking sports, I really don't want to watch it because it's A, going to be negative, B, it's going to, I don't know how much is true, how much is not. It's compared to something like BBC maybe, which I always when I see BBC News, I tend to think, all right, well, that's going to be a little bit more trusting than what I see over on Fox News.
Well, the way I see it, And, I have a lot of people in my life who are in journalism, and I don't want to, insult them. But, it's a job that's a little different. I would say a lot of your local news is just real news because it's just stuff that's going on, a train wreck or whatever. But when you get to the national level, I would say a huge, huge percentage of it is all garbage fiction, and what 6 corporations want you to believe.
Yeah.
And they character assassinate people, and they stage events. It's just like in every generation they have agendas, and it's not really about informing you about what's going on, because why would a government want to tell you anything? It's like,
Yeah, exactly.
why do they need you to know? They program and they put on TV what they want you to see. And people need to awaken to that reality that the news is not a tool for our information, for the betterment of mankind. It's owned by corporations, and they put on there what they want you to see, what they want to show you, what they want you to think. And that's pretty much all it is. Like I said, the local news is local news. It's real. It is. It's just what's going on in your town, your city, or whatever have you. On a national level, corporations discuss, edit, and program your news.
Now, do you think that the national news has always been like that, or do you think there was a time in our history where the national news could have been trusted?
It's always been like that, but less severe. It's been less severe. I think we've surpassed Nazi Germany at this point. But I would say in this country, in the 1950s, 1960s, news was always about programming people, but it was less severe. In news, Walter Cronkite, journalists could be trusted a little bit more. Now they straight up lie to you and read scripts, and there's a subculture that is actually admitting that to you. Like, listen, there's a lot of people who are going to blogs and starting YouTube channels and telling you, listen, I came from journalism. This is all crap. It's just like, and I'm part of that culture that exposes these things. But people don't really know how news works. Like in Nazi Germany, you can look back in times of history and make fun of different types of people. Like, yeah, those people were really propagandized, and they blew things up and made the people think that the enemy did it so they can go to war and all that. All that stuff is happening right now. You just don't know it. And, like I said, things were less severe in yesteryear in the 40s, 50s, 60s, but things are terrible now. We're being propagandized more than people really, it would really disturb people to realize how much of the news is complete fiction.
I'll tell you what, because I'm not a huge news person, but I think you sold me on checking out your news channel to get the the unbiased, the truth news. Like I was, even if it's something I watched one time, I think you sold me on checking it out, because I every now and then I do want to know what's going on in the world, and it's like, for instance, today I was looking at, I was scrolling through something, and something popped up about World War III is afoot or something.
Yeah.
And just reading that led me to 3 other articles that it was the same thing, except it was a different country that was proclaiming it. And it's just it's an interesting. I mean, that right there shows you that, okay, what news source is the truth? Is any of it true or whatever? So that's before we move on to some of this more silliness stuff that I want to get into, knowing that you're a comic book fan. Let's get some of your plugs out of the way, in case, I don't think we'll forget, but just in case, before we get a little silly, where can people find you? Where can people find your music side and your news side?
The music side, just search Dru Hepkins, Dru Hepkins. You can find whatever is out there is there somewhere. The news side, you search Dru Story News, Dru Story News. and you'll find whatever's out there.
And we'll be sure to post the links in our show notes, of course, so that you can easily find it instead of having to actually search it. But in case you're somewhere where you can't see the show notes, just search it. I'm sure you'll find it. Okay, I'm glad you brought up that you're a comic book fan. Now,
Absolutely.
Are you like old school, really like hardcore into comic books? Or are you like more of like a pop culture fan and like into just like the general stuff that we get today in like media?
Maybe a little bit of both.
Okay.
But I'm pretty hardcore. I'm like, yeah, I'm not really into. There's a lot of I don't know how deep you are into like the new school comics with there's a lot of like anime and all that stuff.
So I would say that as much as I call myself like a comic book nerd, I think I'm like I fall into that latter category that I explained, and that's like I've read comic books, especially as a kid and stuff, but I would probably know more about like the modern day comic book nerdy things, which is not necessarily comic books.
Right.
It's the comic book culture of like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the DC
Right.
stuff, and that's kind of where I am. But like because of my past in comic books, like I know, like for instance, Luke Cage isn't a name that is just like who to
Right.
me. Like
Right.
that's a name that I recognize from my past. Now I may not know much. I may not know much more about him than that, but yeah. So that's where I kind of fall. Like I was I don't even know what I read as a kid, to be honest. It was probably some Spider-Man, but honestly, like from what I remember when I was a kid, I remember getting like if you go to I don't know if they're up in New York, but there's this place called Ollie's around here. It's basically a retail, like it's basically a Walmart, but like not. It's kind of more like Big Lots actually. It's a lot like a Big Lots where it's just like cheap retail. But Ollie's has this aisle of books that are like $5 and under books, and they have maybe like packages of 10 random comic books for $5. That is the kind of comic books I read as a kid, where I would just get random assortments of comic books for I don't know how. So like I'd have some old school Spider-Man. I'd have some and when I say old school, at the time it probably wasn't so old school. It was 90s Spider-Man, Simpsons comics, Scooby-Doo comics. It was just all this random stuff that I would end up reading.
Now, I'm pretty specific. I love my Marvel and my DC.
Well, and that's how I am now. So did you like? So when you read comics, have you been reading comics since you were a kid?
Yeah, I've been reading comics since I was a kid, and I backed up off it for a little bit, but then they just came back really hard and like really strong, and I just kind of rode that wave again.
For me, I don't even know, like, again, going back to like I don't know what I read and when I read it. I just remember at some point I fell out of it. Because I was always like, as a kid, I was a fan of the 90s Spider-Man cartoon, the X-Men cartoon, Batman, Superman, the animated series and stuff like that. So I think even back then it was more so like the mainstream stuff I was like that I knew about, and I just, because people knew I liked that, they got me random comic books. But as an adult, so about 10 years ago, when that original Civil War storyline came out for Marvel, that's what brought that, and The Walking Dead brought me back into the world of comics. And for a while, like I was buying comic books every week, and it got, I was up to the point of spending like $30 to $40 a week on comics. So like I backed away from comics again because I couldn't afford it anymore. Like I was like, I can't keep dropping my money on this. So were you reading around the Civil War time 10 years ago?
Yeah, I was I'm a little bit of a comic historian. I take it back. I've even collected a little bit, and like I'm a nerd like that, and I read old comics and their first issues, and I took it very deep. My guys were, I guess I leaned towards Marvel.
Yeah.
And your Spider-Man, Secret Wars,
Yeah, it
Um,
was so good.
and just seeing it all in cinematic form is just like it was very easy for me to just
Yeah.
ride that wave.
What did you think of before we get to some of the Netflix stuff? What did you think of Captain America: Civil War?
What did I think of Captain America: Civil War? I thought it was good. Only thing is that in order to kind of put Captain America on a pedestal, on a some kind of pedestal, which is cool. I understand what they're doing,
Mhm.
but I think they kind of shortchanging Iron Man.
Mhm.
I think that in a true face-off, Iron Man obliterates Captain America. I
Mhm.
mean, there's no way. I mean, Iron Man fights like intergalactic threats.
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know, Captain America is a super soldier.
Yeah.
I just thought that they kind of leveled him out a little bit.
Mhm.
But I liked it. I really did.
I see. So it was interesting when that movie, when they announced that movie, like my heart, like it took an extra beat when they announced it, because that was the comic book that brought me back. Like
Wow.
it is the only like major crossover event from Marvel or DC, really, that I read damn well near everything that had to do with Civil War. From the they did I think they did Road to Civil War. I
Yeah.
read that. I even would either buy the single issues of like Fantastic Four, or anyone that really only had like a single issue or two that dealt with it. Like I even bought some of those just to read almost everything with the Civil War. So like, and 10 years ago I said, and 10 years ago I think we lived in a world where we had Spider-Man, we had X-Men.
Right.
I think maybe Iron Man had come out.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. He was there.
but so we it was just the very beginning of the idea of this cinematic universe. And so when I was reading these Civil War comics, and I loved it so much 10 years ago, I was like, how fucking awesome would it be if they did this, like if they did this as a movie. And when they announced it, like everyone, when the Force Awakens trailer came out, and I was that person too, like
Yeah.
everyone's heart dropped hearing the original score playing with the Millennium Falcon
Yeah.
flying in the trailer. Everyone's heart, sank, dropped, whatever. I was the same way. But I even more so when they announced it and I started seeing the trailers for Civil War, like I was just so hardcore into it. Like that, for me, that was like my Star Wars moment, because it was something I had been waiting for quite literally for 10 years.
Wow.
And I will say this, like I don't think I enjoyed the movie, so luckily I didn't build it up too much, because
Which one?
that's that.
Civil War. Civil
Yeah,
War.
yeah. I enjoyed Civil War. I thought it was a good movie. I still think Winter Soldier is the
Hello.
better Captain America movie.
Hello. Hello.
Uh, oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Um, I think Winter Soldier is the better Captain America movie.
Yeah.
Um, but Civil War is definitely probably the best Avengers movie we've had.
I like the. Is it the first? I think I like the first Avengers. I'm trying to think. I'm
The
getting confused now, but I think I like the first Avengers. And either way, it's just in general, Marvel is just leaving DC in the dust, I
Oh
think.
my god, yeah. It's and I haven't seen, and the only thing I've seen from the new like DC quote unquote universe that they're doing is Man of Steel, and that was such like a I wasn't a huge fan of it.
Nah.
Um and I am going to sit down and watch Batman versus Superman one day. I'll go out and get the DVD, because I do want to. I am a huge Ben Affleck fan, so I do want to see his take on Batman. I've heard it's wonderful. It's probably one of the best things from that movie.
I was never sold as him, and I respect him, and I'm not hating on him. I just never saw him as Batman. Um,
I don't think I saw him as Batman until they said it, and I was like, you know what? I think I'd buy it.
um, you know, Batman he's a lot of things. He's a mixture of a lot of things. He's a mixture of, brawn and darkness and intelligence. And with Ben Affleck, like, I know, he's a smart guy, but he doesn't, on screen, he doesn't say genius to me.
Yeah, okay, I can see where you're coming from. Absolutely, yeah. But I really don't know because I haven't seen it, so I haven't seen his take yet. And also like the Suicide Squad, I was going to go see it, and like because I didn't go on opening day, and everyone I talked to said, it was what it was. I'm like, I guess I'll wait till it's on DVD or something if no one's really sold on it.
Yeah, I saw it.
And how was it, like, without spoiling it?
Oh, you didn't see it yet?
No.
It was good. It gets a B minus.
Okay. That's good for me. That's good. I think that because everyone's everyone that I've talked to has like downplayed it. They're like, it was what it was.
Yeah.
I think when I eventually do see it, I will be able to like appreciate it that much more because because before the movie was released, my expectations was Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, really?
Well, that's how like everyone was saying, this is DC's Guardians of the Galaxy. Like this is going to do it for him. And it didn't. Like it did not do it for him. From what I hear.
Around the Joker. That might be the thing. I don't want to tell you too much if you didn't say it. But
yeah, I've heard some things that I don't know. Yeah, let's go on to some of the Marvel stuff because I don't want to really spoil it. It's I want DC's Marvel or DC's cinematic universe. I want it to succeed because I think the more the merrier, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So have you been watching? Are you a fan of the Netflix series?
Yes, I am.
Have you finished Luke Cage yet?
Yep, I finished the whole thing.
I'm an episode and a half from I'm probably going to finish it tonight.
What do you think so far?
Oh my God, it was so good.
I think it was great.
It's so good. I still think it probably ranks. See, they're all so good. It's hard to rank all the Netflix series.
Right.
I still think Daredevil season 1 is probably the best thing that they've done in the Netflix world. But that's not talking down on anything else. Like it's just so hard to pick one.
I think that and I was actually talking to a friend about this, and she thinks, and I would have to agree, that the fighting in Daredevil was badass. Mm-hmm. The fight scenes were just like they actually outdid Luke Cage with the fighting scenes.
Yes.
But as far as just captivating me or just into the story, I think Luke Cage just grabbed me.
I could, yeah, you know what? I could be sold on that theory, on that mindset. I think what makes me like Luke Cage so much is that I wasn't expecting it to, like, I knew it was going to be good based off of what we've seen from Netflix Marvel so far.
Right.
But even like after watching 4 episodes, I was like, I don't know, how are they gonna keep me like into this character? Because I was, after 4 episodes, it's like, I love it, I'm loving what I'm seeing.
Right.
But essentially he's Superman, so like how are they going to make it so that he has like a threat against him?
Right.
And I guess spoilers for anyone that hasn't watched Luke Cage yet. And maybe there's more in the last episode and a half that I haven't seen, but the Judas bullet is kind of what does it. The alien tech for the first Avengers is what finally kind of like knocks Luke down a peg or two. Right. And like, I don't know, it's just, it is, I'll tell you what, it is probably, I'm trying to think, I don't think any of the other shows gave me, Daredevil 1 or 2 and Jessica Jones. I don't think those 3 had a moment where it almost got me to tear up, and it's kind of an easy thing to do. At 32 now, like I cry pretty easily, but those shows didn't get me to that point. Luke Cage, with the episode where, again, spoilers, people. I mean, if you haven't watched Luke Cage at this point, you can just tune out from this podcast because I don't think we're gonna get to anything else except for maybe another round of plugs for Drew here, but I with the episode, I forget the episode number, but when Pops killed,
Oh yeah.
And there's that scene of Luke just sitting there with the swear jar, and like a tear rolls down. I don't. Maybe that's not. There's a scene where a tear rolls down his face. I thought it was that
Right.
scene. It's around that. It's around that episode though, and like it gets me. Like I'm like I did not full on cry,
Right.
but I definitely like that feeling you get when you're about to cry, like in your
Yeah.
chest. I got that.
Yeah, the series definitely grabbed me more than I thought that it would as well. And I have to say it was just well done. And like I said, Marvel is just leaving DC behind right now.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing that DC excels at, um, when we're out of the Netflix world is television. I think that DC's CW line
Yeah.
I love it. I think it's great. I enjoy it. I stopped watching Agents of Shield last year halfway through,
Yeah.
just because I kind of ran out of time to watch it. So I'm going to go back and watch it, especially since Ghost Rider's there this season.
I
But
watched Arrow and I watched Supergirl, and I wasn't pulled in like I was pulled in with Daredevil or Luke.
well, yeah. There's a world of difference. Like the Netflix shows, far superior. I will, but when I take them out of the equation, because quite honestly, like I only get them for maybe if I'm lucky or unlucky, I get them for maybe a week because I usually binge them within 2 to 7 days.
Right.
So because of the way we take in television now, which I don't think I could. I don't know how those Netflix Marvel shows would fare week to week. I don't know if I would like them as much.
Right.
I
right.
think I like them so much because I can binge them.
Right. Right.
But at the same token, that's why I love The Flash so much, because it's a show that I don't mind waiting for, and I
Right.
think I need to wait for it to appreciate that show so much.
Yeah, and I watched The Flash a little bit. Like I said, I'm watching, at an obligation. I'm just jumping back, but I wasn't pulled into that one either.
See, The Flash is the one that, like, I started watching The Arrow like maybe 2 seasons in or something.
Yeah.
And like I binge watched season 1 and I was really into it. But The Flash, that captivated me, and I don't know why. It's just really, really captivated me. It might be because like they incorporate that time travel aspect, which I'm a huge fan of.
Right.
Again, and I don't talk about The Flash in the same league as the Netflix shows because I don't think it is.
Right.
But like The Flash for me on regular television is probably one of my favorite shows. Like I don't know what it is. It's just it connects with me on some level. I don't know what it is. I love it so much. Like I will like I haven't watched Flash tonight yet.
Yeah.
I usually watch it the next day. So I'll tell you that much is that the Netflix shows get priority over the CW shows.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, no, I mean, who's out of you can include the cinematic universe as well if you want, but who's your favorite villain from Marvel? The Marvel Cinematic Universe / Netflix stuff.
Wow, my favorite villain.
Yeah, I feel like this is a tough question because like sometimes the villains aren't great.
Yeah. Damn. Wow, I never really thought of a favorite villain.
Can I give you my two while you think about it?
Yeah.
So it was honestly the first villain that I said, wow, this is like a superb villain. Like I can't believe how good this villain is Purple Man from Jessica Jones.
Oh, so I didn't even watch Jessica Jones.
Oh, if you like Luke, I mean, I think if you'll still like Luke Cage more, but Jessica Jones is good too.
Yeah.
But and honestly, I think Jessica Jones is good because of the Purple Man. David Tennant's performance as the Purple Man is just outstanding.
I gotta check this out now.
Yeah, I think. I mean, and plus, I mean, you get Luke Cage in it. Obviously, he's not in there a lot, but like his inclusion in it does help make the show, more than it is. But yeah, the Purple Man, I mean, that performance, I think I still think you'll probably like Luke Cage more, but I think you'll really love David Tennant's performance as the Purple Man. I honestly, the only reason I put Baron Zemo on that list now, and I don't know if I put him ahead of him, but the reason I put Baron Zemo on the list, he's the first movie bad guy that I cared about. Like they made him like somebody that I can relate to. Like watching Civil War, I said, well, I kind of get it. Like I think I would have done there's a chance I would have done what he did if what happened to me or what happened to him happened to me, because it was such a and I don't know, there was just something about it that like a lot of people that I talk to don't agree with me at all, but for me, Baron Zemo is like probably, him and Purple Man are like right up there as like the top two Marvel villains.
Yeah, I gotta really check out the Jessica Jones series. I mean, unlike all the others, I didn't even watch it, so I can't even tell you if I think it's good or bad. So is there a reason you skipped out on Jessica Jones? It didn't grab me. See, I know Arrow, I know Flash, I know Supergirl, I know Luke Cage, I know Daredevil, and I know of Jessica Jones, but I was never really a fan of her comics or followed her. So I would have just been watching her just because I'm a comic fan. But I didn't really grow up with her story or anything, so nothing pulled me into her series. So
I'll tell you what, I think you'll love it. I think you'll enjoy. If you're a fan of Daredevil season 1 and 2 and Luke Cage, I don't think that you would hate it at all. I think you would really enjoy it. And I honestly, I think David Tennant's performance is worth the price of admission alone.
Wow. Yeah, I guess I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah, I mean, if you have some time to kill, binge that. I think you'll enjoy it. Okay. We've gone well beyond. I promised you I'd have you out of here in a half hour, right. and we've gone about maybe a little under an hour when it's all said and done and produced.
Right. Yeah.
Excuse me.
That's fine.
But thank you for being on the show, Drew. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah, my pleasure, man.
And I'm I'll do this after we end the show, but one more time, give your plugs out so that anyone that's stuck through the comic talk can be reminded of where to find you.
Sure, man. You could find me at DruHepkins.com. That's DruHepkins.com. Or if you want, the news stuff, the serious stuff, Dru Story News, or you could find it at DruStoryNews.com. Again, Dru is DRU.
Very cool. And on that note, again, thank you, Drew. I really enjoyed having you on the show. It was a lot of fun talking with you.
My pleasure, man.
For Everything is Awesome, I am Kev, and we've been talking right here only on awesomepodcast.com. We've been awesome.